All right, all right, all right. We in here. Oh, we record. My fault. We back. Season 4, True Boy Sports Show. I am your host, Kyng Ralph. Here with a solo dolo. We're gonna have a good episode. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hope everybody's doing good out there in TV land. Before we get started, if you want to do a podcast, not a podcast, sheesh, out with one a while ago. We stepping into the new year, tweaking already. Yeah. Was good. Was good. Back season 4. But if you're looking for a no crash, genderless energy drink on your iPhones, iPads, tablets, computers, all that good stuff, dbw.com. Use promo code JUKE. We're gonna get you right. And then while you're here, wherever you're here from, if you're not already subscribe, like, comment, share. If you're here, hit that comment section. Let me know you're up. Interact with me. I need the interaction. It helps a lot, though. But let's get straight into it, man. Over the weekend, WNBA players wore a shirt that said, "Pay us what you owe us." And the question is, what side are you on? Should players deserve to get paid more? Should stay where they're at? Should they go lock out? All that good stuff. For me personally, as much as I want to say from a negotiation standpoint, they need to go as the players go into these this new CBA and demand 50%. Now, got to start high in order for them to work their way to a number that they deserve to be at. I do think that it took some time for the other leagues to get to where they are now. So just to fast track that revenue split, like the other leagues do, might be biting off a little more than they can chew, but I was under the impression that they were already at 30%, but now that I know that they're only at 9%, makes it where it's like 30% don't sound bad, but 50 would be good. And I think in the end, the way that the sport is growing, specifically the women's sport, it's growing at a rate that is going good. It's pretty much right now because people feel like, oh, the NBA, they look at this conglomerate that the NBA is, and they're like, oh, well, the women should be doing the same. And it took years to get to that. Like, people don't realize at one point, the NBA Finals was not like, it was pre-recorded and released at a later time. Like, it wasn't that popular. And Larry Bird and Johnson came along. That's where the league started to go in the direction in which it was going to grow. I.e., Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark. That's why their names are always together when it comes to it's a narrative that's helping push the league in the right direction. That's why I said I think Juju is going to end up being the Michael Jordan of it all. We're going to see Paige being like a Isaiah Thomas, pushing the league in the right direction. I think that those are going in the right direction. So I just think that they keep fighting for more. So I would say I'm on the side of the play with the WNBA players. I just wanted to give out some stats that I looked up when I was looking up or doing my research for the show. And so they just signed a TV deal. 11 years, $2.2 billion. Was partnered in with the NBA contract, but still 11 years, $2.2 billion, $200 million a year. Strictly where going straight into the pockets of the league, regardless of what happens, and that doesn't even count. Good y'all, what's good y'all? Welcome. That doesn't even count ticket sales. That doesn't count merchandise sales. That doesn't count commercials and things of that such. So it's like strictly off the rip. I think the WNBA lost $50 million, which is weird. You don't really hear too many companies announce their earnings or losses. It's a little weird that the WNBA is one of the few leagues or a few companies that does it, but that's not there nor there. But I do think that losing $50 million and then this year or next year, I believe it's this season, was the start of the new TV deal. So $200 million off rip. They just left their sale at what it was last year. Off of $200 million, they would be up 150 million. So now it's just a matter of how much of that pot does the players, and that's not even to count. Like, there's a difference between like profit and revenue, and that's where I feel like once we have this conversation about revenue, and that's really what it's at, is that's where we need to keep it at, because profit is a whole other thing. That's y'all responsibility, not mine. And so I'm on the side of players with this one. What y'all think? And so at 2, Jalen Hurts has been, ever since he won the Super Bowl, and even the year that I think he ended up getting hurt, and that's why I think he got hurt for a game, and that's why he ended up being second team All-Pro and not the MVP, my personal opinion. But I do think that he gets a lot of disrespect, man. So Jalen Hurts getting disrespected too much by the media. Cam Newton came out and said that he felt like he wasn't a top quarterback. I very much disagree. Before I get into that, all of that though, by explaining the story in a way, there's been a lot of, like, I remember the facility before they shut down and canceled that show. Some of them had him at 5. Some of them had him at like 7 or 8. And I can see where people are coming from when it comes to criticism, because I feel like when you go through Josh Allen, I'll probably take Joe Burrow out of this conversation. Josh Allen, you get a CJ Stroud, you get a Jaden Daniels, you get a Lamar Jackson, a Patrick Mahomes. Like, you take them off of those teams, how good is that team really? And I just feel like, I think Jalen Hurts does what Zach do at a very high level, but making up for what his team would lack is where I would think struggle. In the end, he plays and he balls out when it's needed. The Super Bowl, the previous Super Bowl that they lost, how well he did in these moments in which he's needed to step up in the Super Bowl. Saquon's struggling. The defense is really putting him to stop it on every other run. And then Jalen Hurts has to come in and pick it up and win the game. So I feel like he's good, to just throw him in this category or echelon of quarterbacks where he is like he's the NBO, I just disagree. I think that Joe Burrow has definitely showed his value. I think Hurts showed his value, but I also think that Joe Burrow is a step up. I really think it's those top 4 that I mentioned, and then Jalen Hurts at 5. You got Lamar, Joe, Pat, and Josh. And then after that, it's another echelon. And I think that Mahomes is on one tier. That 3 mentioned after that is on one tier. Then that's when you can throw Jalen Hurts. I'm gonna put him in his own for right now. I think that CJ Stroud is another person, and Jaden Daniels can put themselves in that category. But I'm not finna take away from the success Jalen has had, but I'm definitely not finna put him above certain people that I think their team ticks with how good they play. They don't play well, they lose. Where Hurts doesn't, like Cam Newton said, he doesn't have to play elite in order to get what in order for his team to win Super Bowls. He just has to play elite in certain moments. And so Kenny Pickett has been, according to their inside source, has been tabbed as the number 1 quarterback, QB1 for training camp. Am I surprised? No, because I think that eventually, unless he gets released, which very well this could happen, unless he gets released, Joe Flacco is going to be their starting quarterback on. I'm not sure, and I'm not going to go ahead and make any predictions as far as like how many quarterbacks they're going to keep, if they're going to keep all 4 or what they're going to do. But I do think that Shador's going to make that team. He'll be one of the 3 QBs, regardless of who they keep and who they let go. I could see a world where Joe Flacco gets let go, but Kenny Pickett would have to play amazing football. And that's the part where I'm not the most confident. Against Pickett, I think he's a great guy. But being the quarterback and being a quarterback of the future, I see him as the quarterback for now, where he needs to play well in order for that team to be able to have any kind of success. And current success, if they didn't end up having no success, I think Shedeur ends up playing much sooner than we think. But I do think that Shedeur has worked his way to at least be able to get some meaningful preseason snaps coming up to where he can actually fight for opportunity to be QB1, to be QB2, by the time that the season starts. For me personally, I don't think that I think that Pickett and Joe Flacco are just too polished of quarterbacks that I just don't see them relinquishing that spot to Shedeur or Dylan Gabriel, because as much as it's Shedeur and Dylan, but we still got to give credit to Dylan because he got here. He was a third-round draft pick. So I'm not surprised at all. I'm curious to see what happens from here. I think that Shedeur is doing a great job of incorporating himself into the neighborhood. I've seen that he did a foundation or an event for people whose homes had burned down, or something along to that ilk, where he played cornhole, he hung out with them, signed autographs, took pictures, and these are things in which they matter. And so it's like the saying on the Gladiators, great movie by the way, one of my favorites. You win the crowd, and pretty much you straight. And so I think that he's going about it the right way, putting his head down, getting to know the people in the community. You ingratiate yourself into the community and the people who come support. I feel like that makes you more relatable. It also gives you a one-up within the team, because also you're selling yourself to the point where people are going to want to come support because you're supporting the community. And so that helps from a playing standpoint, that helps from a PR standpoint, and it kind of shows that he can be a franchise back, the leader of a franchise. And so recently, top 10 wide receiver ranking came out, and I'm going to go through, this is according to NFL, they did their, or not NFL.com, this is ESPN.com. I do believe it was all NFL execs, coaches. Where's that? Yeah, so execs, coaches, scouts, NFL's top 10 wide receivers. You know, I like to start mine from the bottom, work my way up. And so, honorable mention, Terry McLaurin, Puka Nacua at 11 12. Garrett Wilson from the New York Jets at 10. Mike Evans, good, consistent, good old Mike Evans at 9. Nick Collins at 8. Malik Neighbors at 7. Amon-Ra St. Brown at 6. A.J. Brown at 5. Lamb at 4. Tariq Hill at 3. Justin Jefferson at 2. And Jamar Chase at 1. And this is where, like, I like the list. I feel like there's a little bit of bias to a certain degree. Do I think that certain people can put themselves in on this list long term? Yes. But do I think that they deserve to be on the list over other people? I'm not quite sure yet. For me, Malik Neighbors and Nico Collins come off my list. I think that Mike Evans, I would put him a little higher on this list. I think he goes right before A.J. Brown at 5, so I would slide A.J. to 5. So if I had to do my list would go, I'm going to keep Garrison at 10. I'm going to take Puka Nacua at 10. I'll go Garrett Wilson at 9. I'm going to put Amon-Ra St. Brown at 8. And I'm going to put Terry McLaurin at 7. A.J. Brown at 6. Mike Evans at 5. Tyreek Hill at 3. then Jamar Chase at 2, and Justin Jefferson at 1. And I do think that Malik Neighbors and Nico Collins had like an opportunity to actually put themselves in that category. DK Metcalf another year, depending on who he plays with. I think that one of the reasons why, like, it's the same thing with Jalen Hurts. I do think that when we start to have conversations and we start comparing players to other players, we have to be real, understand, and talk about the fact of who someone is throwing to or who they have on their team. I think that Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, and Puka, like all of them are players that have a good person throwing, like a great thrower of the football is the person throwing them the ball. Hey, Brown, I want to put Jalen Hurts into that conversation. But when it comes to Justin Jefferson, it don't matter who he got out there, he fit a ball out. Tyreek Hill has pretty much showed that. Malik Neighbors has balled out no matter who's throwing him the ball. Nico Collins, someone that had C.J. Stroud to throw him the ball, and then that's when we see like a jump from Nico Collins. But I do think that one's a combination of both. I think Nico Collins coming into his own as well as getting a C.J. Stroud is why he's flourishing the way that he is. Take away from him. He's a great wide receiver, honestly. But I think Garrett Wilson is another person that balls out. And it doesn't really, so far, it doesn't matter who is throwing him the ball. He's at least going to do his work and get his. Mike Evans, one of them that it don't matter if it's Tom Brady, if it's Baker Mayfield, if it's Jameis Winston. I think he's shown that, I think he's done 10 years of 1,000 yards. Let's look at that quick. But I think it's been 10 years of 1,000 yards, no matter who the quarterback is throwing him the football, and that alone should put him in a category by himself, or at least in rare category. 11 years. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years of 1,000 yards receiving, and at least at 2-3 seasons where it's 1,000 single-digit yards, but still 1,000 yards nonetheless. And so I'm gonna give him more credit for that and put a little higher on this list than others, just from sheer longevity. And it doesn't really matter who is throwing the rock; he finna go get it. I think Terry McLaurin is one of them people that's underrated. He's another one that doesn't really matter who's throwing him. He gonna do his thing. He's a reliable chain mover. Can catch the ball down the field. I think very underrated. I feel like he is, to a certain degree, he's like Keenan Allen of this generation, where he's a great receiver, but when we have conversations, you're probably going to go 6 or 7, 8 names before you get to a Terry McLaurin from the casual fan. People that know ball, they're going to bring him up, but the casual fan, I don't really see too many people thinking of him, and it's a shame in a sense. And so, going to the fast break. Shout out to Masons, check to see how they playing. Is we winning? All right, we're up by 10 halfway through the third. Shout out to them 8. Go ahead, Angel. So we got that fast break. What we got? Bengals doing Bengal-like things. So Shamar Stewart, edge rusher with a lot of promise coming out of Texas A&M, drafted by the Bengals at 17, and the contract happens. And the language, he gets his guaranteed money, he gets the amount of years he gets. Pretty much there's a set amount of whether or not how much money he's going to get based off of where he's drafted. It's pretty much you got to sign it no matter what if you want to get paid or if you want any money at all. And so they come back and they have a clause in his contract that if he was to get into any kind of disciplinary action, he would forfeit a portion to all of his guaranteed money, and that's where they where the drama starts. I feel like you gotta be with both sides of the story. Yes, in the end, if I was gonna invest my money in something, I would want to make sure that I would return on my investment, whether like if they gave everything that they had and it just didn't work out. All right, it just didn't work out. But if I sign someone who then a couple years down the road gets into a DUI, has a DUI, gets into an accident, harms someone, whether it's like domestic or through car accidents and negligence and things of that such, I want to get an return on my investment, at least get my money back. Where I feel like as the player, if you felt like I was going to do that, why did you draft me? And then on top of that, there's no other example of a player having a contract, having that in their contract or a contract like that. So I'm not going to be the person that's going to start. I just got done having a conversation with a homie of mine where I was talking about how I understand their plight, like certain stuff that happens at work, and nobody is getting in trouble or kind of having any kind of conversations about it, except they're having a conversation with themselves. And when it comes down to it, eventually you got to start holding people accountable. And it just kind of comes off like he's the person that they finna host accountable, or the first one that they got to write up when it comes to holding people accountable. But at the end of the day, you got to kind of look at it as like they got to start somewhere, I guess. But do you agree that they got to start with this? I think no. I think there's a reason why you scout, why you do interviews, why you do your research on people. And I think if you're gonna draft them thinking that that might happen, you probably should draft. It's like, oh, I can't go to the club unless I got my gun. I don't think you should really go to the club if that's how you feel. I mean, am I tripping? A terrible analogy. But Kelsey Plum press conference at the WNBA All-Star game, like I mentioned about the shirts, when they were coming up with the idea for the shirts, she says pretty much Caitlin Clark or Team Clark or something along the lines was not a part of the decision-making during shirts. And I just feel like as a veteran, there's certain things that we might want, but there's certain things like keep in-house. And I think that this is one of those things that if you felt the way, you should probably keep this in-house and maybe just speak to the person that you have the issue with or the people you have issues with. Because I do feel like this is just easy for people to pick apart where we're no longer talking about the conversation at hand. We're talking about the whether or not she at Caitlin or anybody on Team Caitlin or Team Clark. And that's the part where I don't like it. I feel like I hate the way that women's game is being covered, because every league and every sport has rivalries. They have people that will talk trash to each other. Shoot, Draymond Green kicked LeBron James in the groin and then was at his wedding. Like, it's sometimes these things in the heat of battle when it comes to competition and there's certain things that you finna do, you might say for the sake of the competition that you may or may not personally agree with when it comes to that person. But I still think that it doesn't change. But for some reason, when it comes to women's sport, Angel Reese gotta hate Caitlin Clark, or the players gotta be hating on her for them to be able to criticize her or how they feel. And I don't believe like that. I don't think people operate like that. I don't think that anybody who is like, nobody would let someone just walk over them and be like, well, I mean, you just pay the bills in the house. Like, there aren't many people who feel like that aren't the ones in those situations. And I feel like if you would ask them like, hey, would you let a person do this to you? They pay the bills. There's a threshold and at a point where like, no, I'm not going for that. But so why did Caitlin Clark get to do never, and she's above criticism, even when she plays bad. She's above criticism when it comes to anyone watching the game and an opinion. But we're not supposed to bring it up because she's bringing all this attention. And that's the part for me. Like, I just posted some clips today from the Two Hoops podcast from my friend, and we were talking about Kyng Clark. And it's just a bunch of people. You have the people that, like, they can make a solid argument on it. But then there's definitely the people where it's like, yeah, you're extremely biased on this. Like, if you really go through and look at, there's an uptick at a certain point in the viewership of Caitlin that it coincides with her being with LSU. Yes, she had some moments and we knew who she was, but not to the conversation that we're having now where, like, the general public knows who she was. Back then, it was just if you knew basketball and you watched basketball, college basketball, who Kyng Clark was. But, like, people just be getting their feelings. They be so biased, and it's crazy. But in the end, I think if you're a vet and you're a person that's been in the league for a while and you're supposed to be an OG in a sense, I think that you should carry yourself a certain way. And I think calling people out in a public light is just never a good way to start a conversation. Me personally. Shout out to Shaq, standing up for Angel. In his situation with RG3 having back and forth with Angel Reese, had some statements today, sometime back, maybe like a month and a half ago, 2 months, saying that Angel Reese hates Kyng Clark. He's one of those people. The odds of everything viral. He had a back and forth with Ryan Clark, and a lot of people are questioning his black card now. I'm not really finna get into all of that. We can have that conversation another day. But I do think something, and we're going to use this moment, I think RG3 is 100% wrong. And I do think posting a picture that's also offensive, you could have definitely brought up something you saw and talked about that instead of trying to post this, give an opinion on it, and then back out of the way to nowhere knows where you are now type of thing is, I feel like it's hurtful. And you have to at least be able to understand why people feel the way that they feel about that situation. And so Shaq coming out saying that, post another monkey picture of my girl, I'm going to punch you in the face. And I think that Shaq's sentiments are pointing in the right direction. I just think that given the status of who Shaq is, how old he is, and the fact that people look up to him, it's not a really good way to go about it. Now, who am I? That man got millions of dollars, is very successful. That's my size. So who am I to tell him how to operate and what to do? But so I'm not going to do that. But I do think that when it comes to, like, younger people, I think that there's a precedent and an example that we need to set that we can't just automatically result to violence. And so with the last little bit of time I got left, Jamal Adams signs with the Raiders, reuniting him with Pete Carroll. I don't know, and I'm not sure how to 100% feel on this one because he hasn't really had an impactful season since 2021. He's hurt a lot. But I do think that his versatility and what he gives the Raiders can really lead to a major thing right now, a rebuild. I think we're going to be successful. I think we're going to be competitive. I got us going 9-7. I can see us going 7-9. I just don't think we have one of those bad years. But we can get into that a whole nother time. But I got to get up out of it. I was playing music in the background, loud as hell. Like, you don't know that I record at 8:30 every Tuesday. Crazy. Feedback and all. Buddy is tweaking. But thank you for watching. Hope everybody's doing good out there in TV land. Like I said, like, subscribe, comment, share. You can catch an audio-only version anywhere at your podcast at 10 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow morning. I'll be posting clips all week. I'll see you all next week. Subscribe at Jute Network on YouTube. Follow Jute Network on Facebook. Follow us at JUK Sports Show. And you can follow me at YARALPH. I'm out of here. Peace.